Do you know what the number one ability for your online fitness success is? Hey everyone, my name is Marty White, and special shout out to all you fitness coaches, personal trainers, and nutrition counselors out there who are out there hustling, trying to change the world. And I look out there and I see all these people all the time. And, I did this myself, especially starting out early on. I had a belief. I had a belief that your online success, your business success, your life success, the way you played the game of life was determined solely on your education and the certifications that you had. And I look at that today, and it's no fault of your own, because that's what you've been led to believe. Key word there is believe. And I was reading this morning about the power of belief, and your ability to create belief is basically that number one determining factor. And I think back to the first time that this actually registered with me, and it was back way before I was a personal trainer, way before I was a fitness coach, and it began on my own personal journey to lose 100 pounds. And I remember back then being 100 pounds overweight, just out of breath, very quickly walking down the hall, walking to the mailbox, walking to the refrigerator, bending over. All of a sudden I was heaving. I was suffocating all the time. And I was in just this tremendous amount of pain. But it's not like I didn't know intellectually what I needed to do to lose the weight. It's really not that complicated. But I had this belief that was floating around in my head. I believed that in order to lose weight, I had to go on some strict calorie restricted diet, even nutrient restricted diets out there that I totally don't believe in. I don't believe you should restrict any nutrients, but I had this belief that I was, essentially going to have to starve it out and go through these intense workouts every day. And that belief kept me in my own little personal bubble, my own little safe space, if you will. And so I was a big fan, always have been a big fan of the UFC ever since my dad and uncle rented UFC 1 way back in the day on VHS, and we watched it. And I saw this incredible thing going down, because there'd always been this argument on style versus style and this, that, and the other. This isn't really an MMA talk today, but I say all that to say watching MMA and watching the UFC and other organizations came in and out of my life for a very long time. So in this particular instance, whenever I was at rock bottom as far as my physical strength, my physical vitality, my willingness to actually go out and do anything was at an all-time low. And I was watching the UFC. I was watching The Ultimate Fighter in it. I forget what the season number was, but it was Chael Sonnen and John Jones were the coaches. And I was sitting on my couch. I was drinking beer and just, pretty much feeling sorry for myself. It was in February. It was around Valentine's Day, and both my wife and I were starting to experience these health issues. And I just remember looking at those guys and being like, man, I just wish I could be like that. Those guys are in tip-top shape. They're out there putting it on the line on, this very complex and interesting game where, your brain health, your other kinds of health are on the line. And just because you win doesn't mean that your body wins at the end of that. It's changed. And I'm like, those guys, there's just something different about them. That was another belief that I had, another false belief, another lie that I was telling myself. And so as I got further and further back into watching the UFC at this point, it kept motivating and inspiring me. So I got this thought. I was like, well, maybe if I start training like a fighter, I'll look like a fighter. Maybe if I start eating like a fighter, start looking like a fighter, because that's what I wanted. I thought that being in shape was going to bring me some sort of validation. It was going to bring me some sort of significance. It was going to put me in this place where people would, like me, respect me, love me even. And the more I chased that, the more I kind of fell into the hole even more. So I kept hearing this name because I started religiously watching the weigh-ins, right? I was watching the weigh-ins, seeing these guys rip, seeing how they faced off with each other, seeing if somebody was showing weakness, trying to predict what was going to happen in the fight based off of the weigh-in. And most of the time I was right, but beside the point. As I kept watching this, I kept hearing his name, Mike Dolce. He's working with the top of the line athletes, getting them ripped and in shape and on weight and all this stuff. I was like, maybe that guy knows something. So I looked this podcast up and I began listening to it. And remember, I told you about the belief I had that I had to starve myself. So he began, like the first episode I listened to, he began telling the story of exactly where I was right at that time. He was like, I was 100 pounds overweight. My gut got in the way whenever I was at the truck. But I was a power lifter and I was, just eating indiscriminately, trying to bulk up, get big, get stronger. And, I'm like strong as hell and lifting all this stuff. And I go to the doctor and the doctor's like, you're half a cheeseburger away from a heart attack or a stroke, man. He's like, oh. So I changed my ways and I realized that that's where I was at the time. And then he began talking about how he also had this false belief about food in his own way. And then it's whenever he began saying is like, what I found out was you don't have to starve yourself to lose weight. You can eat as much as you want to if it's the right ingredients. And I was like, what? You can? And it's like, and better yet, you don't even have to give up your favorite foods. Like that includes lasagna, burgers, potatoes, all sorts of other stuff. As long as the quality of ingredients is there and you know these few little tips and tweaks to actually cook it so you don't get rid of the nutrient value. I was like, I don't have to give up my favorite foods either. And then he began, or he kept on talking rather about his identity. And then he began to tell stories about overcoming these little external roadblocks like health food costs so much more money. And it's like, and he'd tell a story about how much time he's spending in a drive-through and how many times have you gone grocery shopping only to stop by fast food on the way back, and then the food you actually bought at the grocery store goes bad. And it's like, now tell me again what's the deal here? Because obviously eating healthy is less expensive than sorry, that's my dog Sadie in the back saying hello. Totally got derailed there. Sorry about that. But long story short, by telling that story, it created a new belief for me. I was like, oh, well, actually eating healthy organic food is cheaper than eating the junk. So all of these roadblocks, all of these beliefs had been changed. Like first they were smashed, and then through the medium of a story, that belief was transformed into a more empowering belief, the belief that actually got me to the point where I dropped 100 pounds. I even got in a cage a few times and fought just for fun, amateur, won one, lost one. I did it for as long as I needed to before I was able to come to the spot where I had proved everything I needed to prove to the one person I needed to prove it to, this guy here. And I got to tell you, that's all you're looking for too. And so what's the point I'm trying to make here? The power of belief your ability to create belief is going to be the number one indicator, the number one ability you can have that's going to guarantee your success in the online world of online fitness. Because, you know, I just think back to that time and it all went back to the belief. And so obviously I began geeking out about how that actually happened. Once I lost the weight and once I began to realize, I was like, I want to change the world. So I go back to that false belief about it all being about the education credentials, the certifications, the how much you know. And I began, you know, early mistakes in my career was trying to prove to everybody how much I knew, how smart I was, how many certifications I had, what my education was, only to find out that that wasn't really the secret sauce. The secret sauce was the ability to create belief. So that's it, guys. If you enjoyed this, if you hung out with me this whole time, I love doing trainings like this. I love talking about creating belief and how you can use that to get more customers, keep your customers, and live the life of freedom that you are actually wanting in your online fitness business, whether you're taking the form of a personal trainer, even an introverted in-home personal trainer like myself, who rarely likes to take on more than 1 or 2 clients ever at a time. And you might be like, how in the world do you do that? It's like through the ability to create belief. Or if you just want to be a nutrition counselor and help people out with their diet, or if you're a fitness coach who's got, you know, your system, your workout, you're getting amazing results. You're like, how do I get this out there? Your ability to create belief is the number one determining factor. So if you like this training, you know, connect with me somehow. Be sure to like my page, but there's going to be so much more of this type of training coming out. And I just want you guys to let me know what you want me to talk about. So that's it for today, guys. And remember, you're one upgrade away.